The bustling lobby of the Beverly Hills Hotel hummed with activity on a warm Friday afternoon. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting golden rectangles across the polished marble floor. In one corner, near a potted palm tree, sat a gleaming black grand piano, temporarily silent but promising music to come. Lisa Wong adjusted the diamond bracelet on her wrist and scanned the room with practiced nonchalance. At 32, she'd built a respectable career as a classical pianist, respected enough to be invited to perform at exclusive events like tonight's charity gala, but not quite famous enough to stop hustling for recognition. Years of conservatory training and countless competitions had honed not just her skills but her competitive edge. She knew she was good, better than good, but the world hadn't quite caught up to that reality yet. "Another sparkling water, please," she told the bartender, tapping manicured nails against the polished bar top. The hotel lounge was filling up with the usual Los Angeles crowd, producers in expensive casual wear, actresses pretending not to notice people pretending not to notice them, and the ever-present entourages that followed real money around like shadows. Lisa took a slow sip of her water, mentally reviewing the pieces she'd perform later that evening. Chopin, of course, audiences always expected Chopin, but she'd throw in some Liszt to show off her technical prowess. Nothing impressed potential sponsors like watching fingers fly across keys at seemingly impossible speeds. That's when she noticed him. At first, she didn't recognize Keanu Reeves. He sat at a corner table dressed in a simple black shirt and jeans, his hair longer than in his most recent film, a beard partially obscuring his famous face. He was nodding thoughtfully as an older man, possibly a producer, spoke animatedly, sketching something on a napkin. "Is that who I think it is?" Lisa whispered to the bartender, who followed her gaze and nodded with the practiced indifference of someone who served celebrities daily. "He comes in sometimes. Nice guy, tips well, doesn't make a fuss." Lisa felt a small flutter of excitement. Like most people, she'd enjoyed Reeves's films, but something else caught her interest. She recalled reading an interview where he mentioned learning piano for a role, some art house film where he played a burnout composer, finding his way back to music. A memory surfaced, watching a behind-the-scenes clip where Reeves practiced at a piano, his posture all wrong, fingers stiff as he picked out a simple melody. The interviewer had praised his dedication and Reeves had laughed, saying something self-deprecating about being a beginner trying his best. Lisa took another sip of her water, an idea taking shape. The charity event tonight would be full of potential contacts, wealthy donors who might sponsor her upcoming tour, music critics who could write the kind of reviews that opened doors. What better way to make an impression than a spontaneous piano duel with Keanu Reeves? She imagined how it would play out, the famous actor gamely attempting to keep up, the audience charmed by his humble efforts but ultimately dazzled by her virtuosity. It would be the kind of moment people talked about, shared on social media, maybe even picked up by entertainment news. "Concert pianist outshines Hollywood star." The headlines wrote themselves. Taking a deep breath, Lisa picked up her drink and made her way across the lounge. As she approached Reeves's table, the older man noticed her first, pausing mid-sentence. "Excuse me," Lisa said, her voice carrying the confident tone she'd perfected for post-concert interviews. "I don't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to say I'm a fan of your work." Keanu looked up, his expression shifting from mild surprise to a warm smile. "Thank you. That's very kind. I'm Lisa Wong," she continued, extending her hand. "I'm performing at the charity gala tonight." "The pianist," the older man interjected, recognition dawning. "I saw your performance at Disney Hall last fall." "Impressive technique." Lisa smiled, pleased at being recognized. "That's me. And speaking of piano," she turned back to Keanu, "I heard you learned to play for the last sonata. I thought maybe we could give the guests a little preview of tonight's entertainment." Keanu's eyebrows rose slightly. "Oh, I wouldn't call what I do playing. Just enough to fake it for the camera." "Don't be modest," Lisa pressed, sensing an opportunity. Around them, she noticed other guests beginning to take interest in their conversation. "I'm sure you picked up more than you think. Besides, it would be fun. A little friendly competition before the main event." The older man, who Lisa now suspected might be the film's director, chuckled. "Careful what you wish for," he said cryptically, which Lisa took as encouragement. "I really shouldn't," Keanu demurred, but Lisa could see the interest of nearby guests had been piqued. A woman in an elegant blue dress had already whispered something to her companion, both now watching with undisguised curiosity. "Just a quick duet," Lisa suggested, lowering her voice to sound more conspiratorial, more intimate. "The hotel wouldn't mind. They love impromptu performances. It creates atmosphere." She gestured toward the grand piano waiting silently in the corner. "Unless you're nervous?" It was a calculated challenge, softened with a playful smile. Lisa had used this technique before with fellow musicians, a gentle provocation that was difficult to decline without appearing cowardly. Keanu studied her face for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, to her satisfaction, he nodded slowly. "All right, but don't say I didn't warn you." As they stood, Lisa noticed several phones already raised, ready to capture the moment. Perfect. This was exactly the kind of organic publicity that couldn't be bought. "After you," Keanu said, gesturing toward the piano. Lisa walked confidently to the instrument, aware of the growing attention. The lounge had quieted, conversations pausing as people realized something interesting was about to happen. She sat down at the bench, adjusting it slightly, a performer's habit. Keanu stood awkwardly to the side. "Why don't you pull up a chair?" she suggested. "We can start with something simple." A hotel staff member, sensing the impromptu event, quickly brought over another chair. Keanu sat down beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. "Any requests?" Lisa asked the gathering crowd, playing to her audience. "Something classical," someone called out. "How about a little Mozart?" Lisa suggested, looking at Keanu. "Eine kleine Nachtmusik?" "The melody is fairly straightforward." Keanu nodded, his face betraying just a hint of uncertainty that confirmed Lisa's expectations. This would be exactly as she'd imagined. The professional graciously accompanying the amateur, the contrast highlighting her own abilities. "I'll take the melody first, then you can try," she offered, positioning her hands over the keys. "Just watch and then follow my lead." With practiced precision, Lisa began playing the famous opening of Mozart's composition, her fingers dancing lightly over the keys. She played with deliberate clarity, occasionally glancing at Keanu to make sure he was watching her technique. The small crowd had grown larger, phones recording the unexpected scene. After playing through the first section, Lisa paused and smiled at Keanu. "Your turn. Just the melody. I'll handle the accompaniment." She shifted her hands to the lower register, ready to provide a simple backing for what she assumed would be a hesitant, possibly error-filled attempt. Lisa had prepared her response already. She would be encouraging, perhaps gently correct his form, before taking over to demonstrate the piece properly. The contrast would be clear but not embarrassing for him. She was, after all, a professional. Keanu positioned his hands over the keys. His posture was unexpectedly proper, back straight but relaxed, wrists level, fingers curved naturally over the white keys. A small frown of concentration appeared between his brows as he took a breath, and then he played. The first note hung in the air with unexpected clarity and confidence. Lisa felt her smile freeze on her face as Keanu continued, his touch on the keys revealing a level of control she hadn't anticipated. His interpretation of the melody wasn't flashy, but it carried a thoughtful expressiveness that spoke of more than just memorized notes. The lounge had fallen completely silent. Even the bartender had stopped polishing glasses to watch. Keanu finished the section and looked up, a question in his eyes. "Like that?" Lisa recovered quickly, professional training kicking in. "Yes, that's very good. You've obviously practiced more than you let on." She forced a light laugh. "Let's try something a bit more challenging, shall we?" But as she started to suggest another piece, she caught the eye of the older man who had been sitting with Keanu. He was watching with undisguised amusement, as if enjoying a private joke. Something clicked in Lisa's mind, a half-remembered article she'd skimmed months ago about Reeves's preparation for the last sonata. Hadn't the director mentioned bringing in a renowned pianist to train him? Something about Reeves practicing 4 hours daily for months. Lisa felt the first flutter of doubt as she turned back to Keanu, who was waiting patiently beside her, those famous dark eyes betraying nothing of what might come next. "Actually," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "why don't you choose the next piece?" "How about something from Chopin?" Keanu suggested, his voice quiet but steady. "Maybe the Nocturne in E-flat major? It's one I practiced for the film." Lisa's throat went dry. Chopin's Nocturne Op. 9 No. 2 was hardly a beginner's piece. While not the most technically demanding in the classical repertoire, it required a delicate touch and emotional sensitivity that took years to develop. She had included it in her own program for the evening. That's an ambitious choice, she managed, studying his face for any sign of bluffing. There was none. By now the impromptu performance had drawn quite a crowd. Hotel guests lingered with drinks in hand. Staff members paused in their duties, and Lisa spotted at least one person she recognized as a music critic for the Los Angeles Times. What had started as a clever publicity stunt was quickly becoming something else entirely. Can choose something simpler, Keanu offered, misreading her hesitation. No, Lisa said quickly, professional pride taking over. Nocturne is perfect. Would you like me to go first? Keanu shook his head. I'd rather hear it from someone who knows what they're doing afterward. Might help me correct my mistakes. His humility should have been reassuring. Instead, it only increased Lisa's growing unease. True amateurs tended to overestimate their abilities. Only those with genuine skill knew enough to recognize the limits of their talent. The hotel manager approached, seeming pleased by the unexpected entertainment in his lobby. Perhaps we could move this to the main hall, he suggested. We have a better piano there and more space for everyone to enjoy the performance. Before Lisa could respond, people were already murmuring their approval. The manager's suggestion had the air of a decision already made. Sure, if that works for everyone, Keanu agreed with an easy shrug. 20 minutes later, Lisa found herself seated in the hotel's grand hall, a space normally reserved for wedding receptions and corporate functions. The manager had arranged chairs in a semicircle around a magnificent Steinway concert grand. News of the impromptu piano battle had spread throughout the hotel, and at least 60 people now waited expectantly. Lisa spotted several guests from the charity gala's VIP list, people she had hoped to impress that evening under carefully controlled conditions. Now they would hear her play in this strange, unplanned context after whatever performance Keanu delivered. Her phone buzzed with a text from her agent. What are you doing? Video's already online, call me. She silenced the phone and tucked it away. Too late to back out now. The hotel manager stepped forward, clearly enjoying his role in the proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special treat this afternoon. A spontaneous musical showcase featuring acclaimed pianist Lisa Wang, who will be performing at tonight's charity gala. And, he paused for effect, our special guest, Keanu Reeves. A ripple of excited whispers and applause swept through the audience. Lisa forced a smile, though her stomach was churning. In the front row, the older man who'd been with Keanu, now identified by whispers as renowned director Thomas Chen, watched with barely concealed amusement. Mr. Reeves has graciously agreed to play first, the manager continued, gesturing toward the piano. Keanu walked to the instrument without fanfare. He wore no performance attire, just the same casual black shirt and jeans. His hair fell slightly over his forehead as he bent to adjust the bench. The contrast with Lisa's formal performance dress and perfectly styled hair couldn't have been more striking. I should warn everyone, Keanu said to the audience, his voice soft enough that people leaned forward to hear. I'm not a real pianist. I just learned for a film role. So keep your expectations low. A warm chuckle rippled through the crowd. Lisa saw several women in the audience exchange looks that suggested they'd forgive any musical shortcomings from the beloved actor. Keanu took a moment to settle himself. His preparation was that of someone who had at minimum received proper instruction, hands hovering briefly over the keys, shoulders relaxed, a deep breath before beginning. Lisa recognized the ritual from countless master classes and competitions. Then he began to play. The opening notes of Chopin's Nocturne floated into the hall with unexpected tenderness. Lisa felt her critical ear engage automatically, expecting to catalog mistakes and hesitations. Instead, she found herself caught off guard by the genuine musicality of his approach. His technique wasn't flawless. There were places where his fingers seemed to search for notes rather than landing with absolute certainty. His tempo varied in ways that sometimes suggested deliberate expression, other times simple human limitation. Yet there was something in his playing, a sincerity perhaps that captured the dreamlike quality of the piece. Lisa watched his hands, noting the careful pedal work, the attention to dynamics. This was no amateur fumbling through memorized finger positions. This was someone who understood on some level what the music was meant to convey. In the audience, people had gone completely still. Even those who couldn't distinguish between good and exceptional playing seemed to sense they were witnessing something special. Not a virtuoso performance, certainly, but something genuine, a person connecting with music in a way that transcended mere entertainment. As Keanu played the final gentle phrases, letting the notes fade into silence, Lisa found herself temporarily forgetting her competitive spirit. For a moment, she was simply another listener, appreciating the unexpected beauty of the moment. The silence that followed lasted only seconds before the audience erupted in enthusiastic applause. Keanu acknowledged it with a humble nod, no trace of smugness or self-satisfaction on his face. If anything, he seemed slightly embarrassed by the attention. "Thank you," he said simply, then turned to Lisa. "Your turn. I'd love to hear how it's really supposed to sound." All eyes shifted to her. Lisa stood smoothing her dress with suddenly damp palms. The dynamic had shifted completely. No longer was this a stunt where she would graciously outshine an amateur. Now she faced the challenge of following a performance that, while technically imperfect, had connected with the audience in a powerful way. As she took her seat at the piano, Lisa made a split-second decision. She had planned to play the same nocturne, demonstrating through contrast her superior technique. Now that seemed both petty and risky. Instead, she would need to showcase something different, something that would highlight her years of training without seeming to directly compete with what had just occurred. "I think we've heard a beautiful interpretation of the nocturne," she said, forcing confidence into her voice. "I'd like to offer something different. Liszt's La Campanella." A murmur went through the audience. Those familiar with classical music recognized the name, one of the most technically challenging pieces in the piano repertoire. Lisa saw Thomas Chen raise an eyebrow, clearly understanding her strategic pivot. Keanu had retreated to a chair in the front row, his expression open and interested. If he recognized her tactical change, he showed no sign of it. Lisa positioned her hands above the keys, centering herself. La Campanella was her showpiece, a dazzling display of speed, precision, and endurance that never failed to impress audiences. The rapid leaps between registers, the lightning-fast repeated notes, the sheer athletic demands of the piece made it perfect for demonstrating technical mastery. She launched into the piece with fierce concentration, her fingers flying across the keyboard with machine-like precision. Each note rang out crystal clear, each leap landed exactly where intended. Years of practice had embedded this piece so deeply in her muscle memory that she could perform it flawlessly even under pressure. As she navigated through the most difficult passages, Lisa was aware of the audience's growing amazement. This was what she had wanted from the beginning, a chance to showcase her exceptional skill before an influential crowd. She could feel their attention, their appreciation of her virtuosity. Yet something felt hollow in the experience. For all the technical fireworks she was producing, Lisa couldn't help but compare the emotional response to what she had witnessed during Keanu's simpler performance. There had been a connection there that transcended technique, something she had somehow lost sight of in her years of competitive training and professional striving. Her fingers continued their practiced dance across the keys as her mind raced. Had she become so focused on playing perfectly that she had forgotten to play meaningfully? The thought was disturbing, challenging years of her musical identity. As she approached the finale, Lisa made another spontaneous decision. Rather than ending with the customary flourish of speed and volume, she took a subtle detour, moderating the tempo and softening the touch, bringing unexpected tenderness to Liszt's showpiece. It wasn't how the piece was typically performed, but in that moment, it felt right, a small rebellion against her own perfectionism. The final notes resonated through the hall, and Lisa lifted her hands from the keys, suddenly uncertain how her interpretation would be received. For a moment there was silence. Then the applause began, enthusiastic, appreciative, and genuine. As Lisa stood to acknowledge it, her eyes met Keanu's. He was applauding with the rest, his expression reflecting not defeat or envy, but simple appreciation. Next to him, Thomas Chen nodded slowly, a thoughtful look on his face. The hotel manager stepped forward again, clearly delighted by how his impromptu event had unfolded. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all agree we've witnessed something special today. He turned to Lisa and Keanu. Perhaps our artists might consider one more piece. A duet, perhaps? Lisa felt a flash of panic at the suggestion. A duet? She hadn't prepared for that possibility. Her gaze shifted to Keanu, wondering how he would respond to such an unexpected proposal. Lisa looked to Keanu, hoping he would decline the suggestion of a duet. To her surprise, he seemed to be considering it. "I'm not sure I know any duet pieces well enough," he said, addressing both Lisa and the hotel manager. "But maybe we could try something simple." Before Lisa could formulate a response, Thomas Chen spoke up from his seat in the front row. "What about Heart and Soul? Everyone knows that one." A ripple of amused recognition went through the crowd. Heart and Soul was perhaps the most famous piano duet in popular culture. The simple tune played by Tom Hanks in the movie Big, attempted by countless beginners on mall pianos, the musical equivalent of a friendly handshake, it was also, in Lisa's professional opinion, painfully basic. Playing it would be like asking a master chef to make a peanut butter sandwich. She opened her mouth to suggest something more sophisticated, but the audience was already murmuring their approval of the idea. Even worse, Keanu was nodding. "I think I can manage that one," he said with a small smile. "If Lisa's willing?" All eyes turned to her. In that moment, Lisa realized she had a choice. She could maintain her professional dignity by suggesting a more advanced piece, potentially coming across as elitist, or she could embrace the unexpected turn this afternoon had taken and simply play. "Sure," she heard herself say. "But I call dibs on the melody first." A soft laugh rippled through the audience, breaking the tension. Keanu gestured toward the piano bench. "After you." Lisa sat down, sliding to one side to make room. The bench was designed for a single performer, forcing them to sit closer than she would have preferred. She could smell a faint trace of sandalwood cologne as Keanu settled beside her. "I'll take the lower part to start," he offered, positioning his left hand over the bass keys, just like in Big. Lisa nodded, placing her fingers on the familiar starting notes of the melody. It had been years since she'd played anything this simple, yet she found herself oddly nervous. The technical demands were non-existent, but there was a vulnerability in simplicity, nowhere to hide. No flashy passages to distract from the pure communication of music. She began the familiar melody, its childlike innocence floating above Keanu's steady accompaniment. After the first time through, he glanced at her with raised eyebrows, silently asking if she wanted to switch parts. Lisa nodded, and without missing a beat, they reversed roles, her left hand finding the repetitive pattern while he took over the melody. What started as a potentially awkward moment transformed into something unexpected. They began to play with the simple tune, Keanu adding slight variations to the melody, Lisa responding with subtle changes to the rhythm. A musical conversation emerged, playful and spontaneous. When Lisa threw in a jazz-inflected bass line, Keanu matched it with syncopated melody notes. When he introduced a minor key variation, she complemented it with appropriate harmonies. The audience watched in delighted surprise as the simplistic duet evolved into something more sophisticated, yet still accessible. Lisa caught glimpses of people smiling, some swaying slightly to the rhythm. A few had their phones out, recording the unexpected collaboration. For the first time that afternoon, Lisa completely forgot about impressing anyone. The competitive energy that had driven her challenge to Keanu had dissolved, replaced by the simple joy of musical play, something she hadn't experienced since her early days at the conservatory, before performances became about perfection rather than expression. As they brought the improvisation to a natural close, the audience broke into enthusiastic applause. Lisa found herself laughing, genuinely and without reservation. When she glanced at Keanu, she saw the same unguarded enjoyment on his face. "That was fun," he said simply. His words meant just for her. "It was," she agreed, surprised by how much she meant it. The hotel manager stepped forward, clearly thrilled with how his impromptu event had evolved. "Ladies and gentlemen, wasn't that wonderful? I believe both our performers have other commitments this evening, but perhaps we could persuade them for one final piece." Lisa was about to decline. She needed to prepare for her actual performance at the charity gala, when an elderly woman in the front row spoke up. "Could you play something from your movie, Mr. Reeves?" The one about the pianist? A murmur of interest spread through the audience. Keanu hesitated, glancing at Thomas Chen, who gave a slight nod. There is one piece, Keanu said carefully. It's central to the film, a composition by my character, but I'd need help. He turned to Lisa. It's written as a duet. Lisa blinked in surprise. You want me to sight read a piece from your film, now? Thomas Chen stood up, pulling a folded sheet of paper from his jacket pocket. I happen to have the score right here. We were discussing some final edits to it earlier. He approached the piano, unfolding what appeared to be several pages of handwritten music. Lisa took the sheets, scanning them quickly with practiced eyes. The composition was unusual. Contemporary with classical influences, complex but not technically overwhelming. Most interestingly, it was indeed written as a true duet, with the parts interweaving in a way that created a complete musical story only when played together. This is quite beautiful, she said, genuinely impressed. Who composed it? Philip Glass, Keanu answered. He wrote it specifically for the film. Lisa's eyebrows rose. Philip Glass was one of the most renowned contemporary composers. Having original music by him was a significant investment for any film. I don't know if I can do this justice on first reading, she admitted, though her fingers were already itching to try the haunting melody lines. We can simplify if needed, Keanu offered. I've practiced my part quite a bit so I can help guide us through. The challenge awakened something in Lisa, not the competitive drive from earlier, but a purely musical curiosity. The piece was intriguing, unlike anything in her regular repertoire. Let's try it, she decided. They positioned themselves at the piano again, the score propped up where both could see it. Keanu pointed to several notations, quietly explaining some of the composer's intentions and where his character would be in his emotional journey during this piece. Lisa listened attentively, finding herself drawn into the story of the film through its music. Ready? Keanu asked finally. Lisa nodded, and they began. The piece started with Keanu playing alone, a sparse, melancholy theme that hung in the air like an unfinished thought. Lisa followed the score, waiting for her entrance, feeling the room grow still around them. When her part finally joined his, the effect was transformative. The two musical voices, one searching, one responding, created a conversation that felt startlingly intimate. As they progressed through the piece, Lisa found herself relying less on the written notes and more on listening to Keanu's playing, responding instinctively to his phrasing and dynamics. Despite her initial concerns about sight reading, she found a freedom in not having rehearsed, in discovering the music as it unfolded. There were moments when she missed notes or hesitated briefly, imperfections she would never have tolerated in a formal performance. Yet somehow these small human flaws seemed appropriate to the piece itself, which was about connection and vulnerability rather than technical perfection. The final section of the duet built to an emotional climax before resolving into a delicate, hopeful conclusion. As the last notes faded, Lisa became aware of a remarkable silence in the hall. No one moved or spoke for several seconds, as if afraid to break the spell the music had cast. Then, slowly, the applause began. Not the immediate, enthusiastic response of earlier, but something deeper and more thoughtful. Lisa saw several people wiping away tears, including, surprisingly, the hotel manager himself. Thomas Chen was the first to rise to his feet, followed quickly by others until the entire audience was giving them a standing ovation. Lisa felt a strange mixture of emotions, pride certainly, but also a kind of humility she hadn't experienced in years. A recognition that she had been part of creating something that transcended her individual skill. Thank you, Keanu said to the audience, his voice quiet but carrying in the hushed room. That piece is called Recognition in the film. It's the moment when my character finally allows himself to be truly seen by another person, through music. He turned to Lisa, extending his hand in a gesture that acknowledged her contribution. As she took it, the audience's applause increased. I should be thanking you, she said privately as they stood together. This afternoon didn't go at all how I planned, but maybe it went how it needed to, he finished when she trailed off. Lisa nodded, surprised by how right that felt. She had come looking for a publicity opportunity, and found instead a reminder of why she had fallen in love with music in the first place. As they left the piano, people began to approach them, audience members expressing appreciation, A few reporters hoping for comments. The charity organizers delighted by the unexpected publicity for their evening event. In the midst of the crowd, Lisa felt her phone buzzing continuously in her purse, undoubtedly her agent trying to make sense of what had just happened. Thomas Chen appeared at her elbow, his expression thoughtful. "That was quite something," he said. "You're very talented." "Thank you," Lisa replied automatically, though her mind was still partially absorbed in the music they'd just created. "We're doing some final recording sessions for the film's soundtrack next month," he continued. "The studio musicians are fine, but after hearing you today," he glanced toward Keanu, who was graciously taking a photo with the elderly woman who had requested the film piece. "There's a chemistry there that can't be manufactured. Would you be interested in discussing the possibility of recording the duet sections with Keanu?" Lisa stared at him, momentarily speechless. Soundtrack recording for a major film would normally be arranged through her agent, with contracts and negotiations. This casual offer, emerging from what had started as a misguided challenge, seemed impossible. "You're serious?" she finally managed. Thomas smiled. "Entirely. Great music happens when technical skill meets authentic emotion. That's rare, and when I see it, I want to capture it." He handed her a business card. "Think about it. Call me tomorrow." As he walked away, Lisa looked down at the card in her hand, then over at Keanu, who caught her eye across the room and gave a small, questioning nod. For the first time that day, Lisa felt her original confidence return, not the brittle, defensive pride from before, but something more grounded and genuine. Whatever happened next, she had experienced something valuable today, something that would change how she approached her music going forward. And it had started with a challenge she never should have issued, to a man she had seriously underestimated. 3 hours later, Lisa stood backstage at the charity gala, waiting for her introduction. The grand ballroom of the Beverly Wilshire Hotel glittered with chandeliers and evening wear. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see tables of wealthy donors engaged in conversation, champagne glasses catching the light as they moved. Under normal circumstances, Lisa would have been reviewing her program in her mind, running through difficult passages, preparing herself mentally for a flawless performance. Tonight, however, her thoughts kept drifting back to the unexpected piano duel that afternoon. Videos of their impromptu performance had already spread online. Her agent had called 5 times, alternating between excitement about the exposure and concern that Lisa had risked her professional reputation by playing heart and soul in public. Several music journalists had reached out for comments. Even the event organizers had asked if she might consider changing her planned program to include the Philip Glass piece she had sight-read with Keanu. 5 minutes. "Ms. Wong," the stage manager said, poking his head through the door. Lisa nodded, smoothing the fabric of her concert gown. She had chosen the dress months ago, midnight blue with subtle silver beading that caught the light when she moved. Professional, elegant, and just dramatic enough for a charity performance. Her hair was pulled back in its usual performance style, her makeup perfect. Everything was exactly as she had planned it, except for Lisa herself. Something had shifted inside her that afternoon, and she couldn't quite return to the person she had been that morning. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Expecting another frantic note from her agent, she was surprised to see an unknown number. "Break a leg tonight," or whatever the piano equivalent is. Maybe snap a string. That sounds wrong. Anyway, you'll be amazing. A smile tugged at her lips. She hadn't expected to hear from Keanu again so soon, if at all. Despite Thomas Chen's offer, and their unexpected connection over the keyboard, the reality was that they belonged to different worlds. Once today's unusual circumstances passed, she had assumed they would return to their separate orbits. 2 minutes, the stage manager called. Lisa slipped her phone back into her bag, took a deep breath, and approached the stage entrance. As she waited for her introduction, she found herself unusually calm. Normally, before performances, her mind raced with thoughts about who was in the audience, what critics might say, how this performance might affect future bookings. Tonight, those concerns seemed distant. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC's voice rang out, "please welcome acclaimed pianist Lisa Wong." Applause greeted her as she walked onto the stage. Lisa took her customary bow, then settled at the piano bench, adjusting it slightly before placing her hands in her lap. She looked out at the audience, allowing herself a moment to really see them. not as judges or potential patrons, but as people who had come to experience music. In the third row, she spotted a familiar figure. Keanu had changed into a simple black suit for the evening event, his hair combed back but still recognizably himself. He gave her a slight nod of acknowledgement when their eyes met. Lisa had planned to open with Rachmaninoff, technically impressive, guaranteed to establish her credentials immediately. But sitting there, feeling the collective anticipation of the room, she made a split-second decision. She began with Debussy's Clair de Lune instead. The piece was far from the most technically challenging in her repertoire. Many advanced students could play it competently, but its beauty lay not in its difficulty but in its expressiveness, the delicate balance between restraint and emotion, the subtle shifts in tempo and dynamics that could transform it from pretty background music to something transcendent. As Lisa played the familiar opening notes, she felt herself approaching the piece differently than she had in years. Rather than focusing on executing each note perfectly, she allowed herself to truly listen to the sound she was creating, to feel the music as it emerged from beneath her fingers. The audience responded to the change in her playing. Even without looking up, Lisa could sense the shift in the room, the subtle settling as people stopped making polite conversation and began truly listening. By the time she reached the flowing middle section, the ballroom had fallen into complete silence, the kind that comes not from politeness but from genuine attention. When the final notes faded, there was a moment of complete stillness before the applause began. Lisa looked up to see several people wiping away tears, including an older gentleman she recognized as one of the evening's major donors. As the applause continued, she caught Keanu's eye again. He wasn't clapping with the others. Instead, he gave her a small understanding smile and a slight tilt of his head, acknowledgement of what had just happened, of the choice she had made to prioritize expression over technical display. The rest of Lisa's program flowed from that beginning. She played her scheduled pieces but approached each with a fresh perspective, allowing herself liberties with tempo and dynamics that she would have considered unprofessional just a day earlier. When she finished her final piece, a Chopin polonaise that she invested with more fire and freedom than ever before, the audience rose to their feet. Afterward, during the reception, Lisa found herself surrounded by guests offering congratulations. The praise was different from what she usually received. Instead of comments about her technique or precision, people spoke about how the music had made them feel, how certain passages had brought back memories or stirred emotions. That was quite something. She turned to find Keanu standing nearby, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. He offered one to her. "Thank you," Lisa said, accepting the glass. "I didn't know you would be here tonight." "I wasn't planning to come," he admitted. "But after this afternoon, I was curious about whether I'd crash and burn after our little duet threw off my practice schedule." Keanu shook his head, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "About whether you'd play the way you did with me or the way you did before." Lisa took a sip of her champagne, considering his words. "And what's your verdict?" "I think you found something better than either." Before Lisa could respond, they were interrupted by an elegant older woman in an expensive suit, Diane Powell, the chairwoman of the Charity Foundation and a significant figure in Los Angeles philanthropy. "Ms. Wong, that was absolutely beautiful," Diane said, clasping Lisa's free hand between both of hers. "I've heard you play before, but tonight was something special." Her gaze shifted to Keanu. "And Mr. Reeves, what a lovely surprise to have you join us. I saw that remarkable video from this afternoon. You two create magic together." "Just a happy accident," Lisa said modestly. "The best collaborations often start that way," Diane replied. "In fact, that's partly why I wanted to speak with you both." She lowered her voice slightly, leaning in. "Our foundation is launching a new arts education initiative for underprivileged schools. We're planning a major fundraising concert at Disney Hall in 2 months. We had booked a renowned pianist, but he's unfortunately had to withdraw due to health issues." Lisa felt a flutter of anticipation, guessing where this was heading. "I was wondering," Diane continued, "if you might consider stepping in, Ms. Wong. And perhaps," her gaze shifted to Keanu, "if Mr. Reeves might join you for a special duet. That glass piece from this afternoon's video was extraordinary." Lisa glanced at Keanu, trying to gauge his reaction. Performing at a major charity concert was one thing for her. It was her profession, after all. But for him, it would be stepping well outside his usual public role, exposing himself to critique in a field where he was, by his own admission, still a learner. "I don't normally perform publicly," Keanu said carefully. "What happened today was unexpected." "Of course I understand," Diane said, though disappointment flickered across her face. "It was just a thought. The video reminded me of how powerful music can be when there's a genuine connection between performers, and the cause is one I thought might interest you. Both, bringing music to children who would otherwise never have the opportunity." Lisa watched Keanu's expression shift subtly as Diane mentioned the children. Something softened in his eyes. "I'd be honored to perform," Lisa said, making her decision. "With or without a duet partner." She gave Keanu a small smile. "Though I think the audience would be quite disappointed to miss the chance to see Hollywood's most beloved action star play Chopin." Keanu gave her a look that was half amusement, half warning. "I'm not sure my piano teacher would agree I'm ready for Disney Hall." "You seemed ready enough this afternoon when you had something to prove," Lisa countered, surprising herself with her boldness. "Did I have something to prove?" Keanu asked quietly. "Or did you?" The question hung between them, not accusatory but thoughtful. Lisa felt a flush of embarrassment as she remembered her original motivation for challenging him, the desire to show off, to establish her superiority. "Perhaps we both did," she acknowledged. "And maybe we both learned something." Diane looked between them, clearly sensing the undercurrents in their conversation. "I'll let you two discuss it," she said diplomatically. "Ms. Wong, I'll have my assistant send over the details tomorrow. Mr. Reeves, the invitation remains open." With a gracious smile, she moved on to greet other guests. When she had gone, Lisa turned back to Keanu. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have put you on the spot like that." "It's okay," he said. "It's a good cause. But you don't have to do it. I know this isn't your world." Keanu was quiet for a moment, his gaze thoughtful as he looked out over the crowded reception. "You know, for the film I spent 6 months learning piano. Hours every day. My teacher, a rather intimidating Russian woman, pushed me harder than any martial arts instructor ever did." "That explains your technique," Lisa said. "I was genuinely surprised. I loved it," Keanu continued. "Not just for the film, but for itself. There's something about music that's—" He paused, searching for words. "It bypasses all the noise. Goes straight to what matters." Lisa nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. "That's why I started playing as a kid. Somewhere along the way, I think I forgot. Until today?" "Until today," she agreed. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the gala continue around them. The glittering dresses, the practiced laughter, the careful social choreography of wealthy people supporting a worthy cause. "I'll do it," Keanu said suddenly. "The concert?" He nodded. "On one condition." "What's that?" "We practice together, properly. No more sight reading or improvising. If we're going to do this, let's do it right." Lisa felt a smile spread across her face. Not the professional smile she used at events like this, but something more genuine. "I think that can be arranged. Though I should warn you, I'm a demanding rehearsal partner." "I would expect nothing less," Keanu replied, raising his champagne glass slightly. "To unexpected challenges?" Lisa touched her glass to his. "And unexpected friendships." As they drank to their impromptu toast, Lisa reflected on how completely her day had veered from its expected course. What had begun as a calculated publicity stunt had somehow transformed into something authentic, a rediscovery of her love for music, a promising professional opportunity, and perhaps most surprisingly, the beginning of a genuine connection with someone she had completely misjudged. Sometimes, she thought, the wrong notes led to the right places. 8 weeks later, Lisa sat in a small practice room at the Los Angeles Philharmonic's rehearsal facility, staring at the clock on the wall. Keanu was 15 minutes late for their final rehearsal, before tomorrow's charity concert at Disney Hall. The past 2 months had transformed Lisa's life in ways she couldn't have anticipated. The videos of their impromptu duet had gone viral, bringing attention not just from classical music circles but from mainstream media. Her agent had fielded offers for interviews, recording contracts, and performance opportunities that would have been unthinkable before. More meaningful than the professional opportunities. however, was the shift in Lisa's relationship with her own music. She had begun practicing differently, still with technical precision, but with a newfound focus on emotional authenticity. Her recent performances had received the best reviews of her career, with critics noting a newfound depth and compelling vulnerability in her playing. And then there were the rehearsals with Keanu. Twice a week for the past 2 months, they had met to prepare for the charity concert. Their sessions had started awkwardly. Two very different people from very different worlds connected only by an unexpected musical chemistry. But gradually, a genuine friendship had developed. Lisa checked her phone. No messages explaining his tardiness. This wasn't like him. Despite his laid-back public persona, Keanu had proven to be surprisingly disciplined about their rehearsals, often arriving early to warm up. Just as she was considering calling him, the door opened. Keanu stepped in, looking slightly rumpled in jeans and a black t-shirt, his hair windblown. "Sorry I'm late," he said, placing a guitar case in the corner before sitting at the second piano. Traffic was brutal. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "You brought a guitar to our piano rehearsal?" "It's for later," he explained vaguely. "A friend's thing." Lisa decided not to press the issue. "We should focus on transitions today. The middle section of the glass piece still feels rushed when we move from your solo to the duet part." Keanu nodded, flexing his fingers before placing them on the keys. Over the weeks, Lisa had noticed small changes in his approach, his posture more consistent, his hand position more relaxed yet controlled. He'd been taking additional lessons, she knew, determined not to embarrass himself at Disney Hall. They worked through the piece methodically, stopping to refine passages, discussing interpretation, occasionally disagreeing about tempo or dynamics. The process had become comfortable, their working relationship finding a natural balance between Lisa's technical expertise and Keanu's intuitive sense of the music's emotional core. "That's much better," Lisa said after their third run-through of the troublesome transition. "But your left hand is still a bit heavy here." She demonstrated the passage on her piano. "Like this?" Keanu attempted the correction. "Lighter. Think of it as asking a question, not making a statement." He tried again, his brow furrowed in concentration, achieving a more delicate touch. "Yes, exactly." Lisa smiled. "And see? You do listen sometimes." "I always listen," Keanu replied with a small grin. "I just don't always agree." Their easy banter was interrupted by Lisa's phone ringing. Seeing it was Diane Powell, the Charity Foundation chairwoman, she answered immediately. "Lisa, darling." Diane's voice came through sounding strained despite her attempt at casualness. "How are the rehearsals coming along?" "Very well," Lisa replied. "We're just working on final details." "Is everything all right? You sound concerned." "Well, we've hit a small snag with tomorrow's event," Diane said. "The governor's office just called. He'd like to attend and say a few words about arts education funding." Lisa failed to see the problem. "That's wonderful news, isn't it? Having the governor there should help the fundraising effort." "Yes, of course, but it means media attention will be significantly higher than we anticipated. All major networks, additional security protocols, and—" Diane hesitated. "Lisa, dear, the governor's office asked specifically about your duet with Keanu. Apparently, his daughter is a huge fan of both the viral video and Mr. Reeves himself." Lisa glanced at Keanu, who had moved to her piano bench to mark something on their shared score. "I don't understand the issue, Diane." "The performance needs to be perfect," Diane said, lowering her voice as if Keanu might overhear through the phone. "I know Mr. Reeves has been working hard, but he's not a professional musician. With this level of scrutiny, I wonder if perhaps we should reconsider the duet portion." Lisa felt a flash of protective indignation. "Keanu has been practicing for hours every day. We're ready. I'm sure you are, dear. But this event is crucial for our foundation's funding for the next 3 years. Perhaps Mr. Reeves could still appear, say a few words about the importance of arts education, and then you could perform solo. We could explain that his filming schedule—" "Diane," Lisa interrupted firmly. "We're doing the duet as planned. Trust me on this." After a moment of silence, Diane sighed. "Very well. You've never let us down before. I'll see you both at the sound check tomorrow afternoon." She hung up. Lisa put her phone down, feeling Keanu's questioning gaze. "Problem?" he asked. She considered sugarcoating the situation but opted for honesty. "The governor's attending tomorrow. Diane's nervous about the duet being perfect." Ah. Keanu was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable. She wants me to bow out. Yes, maybe she's right. He stood, moving back to his own piano. This was always a strange idea. An actor playing alongside a professional pianist at Disney Hall. Lisa felt a surge of frustration. Don't do that. Do what? Retreat. You've put in the work. You're ready for this. Keanu ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty from someone usually so composed. There's a difference between being ready to play and being ready to play at the level Disney Hall deserves. That's not for Diane to decide, Lisa said firmly. Or even you. We created something genuine that day at the hotel. Something that moved people. That's why we're doing this. Keanu studied her face. You really believe that? I do. Lisa moved to stand beside him at his piano. 2 months ago, I challenged you to a piano duel because I wanted to show off. I thought music was about proving something. You reminded me it's about sharing something. She placed her hand briefly on his shoulder. So let's share what we've created. A small smile formed at the corner of his mouth. When did you become the inspirational one in this partnership? I've always been inspirational, Lisa replied with mock indignation. You were just too intimidated by my technical brilliance to notice. Their laughter broke the tension. They returned to rehearsing with renewed focus, working through the entire program twice more before calling it a night. As they packed up their scores, Keanu seemed to be considering something. Are you nervous about tomorrow? He finally asked. Lisa paused. Normally, she would have given her standard response about being prepared, not nervous, but their unusual partnership had created a space for unusual honesty. Yes, she admitted, but not about the music. About whether I can be as authentic on that stage as I was that day at the hotel. It's different when it's planned, when there are expectations. Keanu nodded, understanding in his eyes. I know something about performing under expectations. How do you handle it? In your films? He was quiet for a moment, zipping his music into a leather portfolio. I try to find the truth in each moment. Not what people expect to see, but what feels real. He looked up at her. Maybe it's the same with music. Maybe it is. Lisa agreed softly. The next evening, Disney Hall blazed with lights, the curved metallic exterior gleaming against the darkening Los Angeles sky. Backstage was controlled chaos, staff with headsets rushing about, security personnel checking credentials, technical crews making last-minute adjustments. In a quiet dressing room, Lisa sat in her concert gown, a simple design in deep burgundy, trying to center herself before the performance. Her usual pre-concert rituals felt inadequate tonight. This was different from any performance she had given before. A gentle knock at the door preceded Keanu's entrance. He looked different in formal concert attire, black suit, white shirt, no tie. His hair was neatly combed, his expression calm but focused. How are you feeling? Lisa asked. Like I might throw up, he replied with surprising candor, making her laugh. Keanu Reeves gets stage fright? I don't believe it. This isn't a film set, he pointed out. I can't ask for another take if I mess up. Lisa stood, smoothing her dress. Remember what you told me yesterday? About finding the truth in each moment? He nodded. That's all we have to do out there. Play the truth. A stage manager appeared at the door. 5 minutes, Ms. Wong, Mr. Reeves. They walked together through the backstage corridors, emerging into the wings of the magnificent concert hall. From their vantage point, they could see the packed auditorium, nearly 2,000 people, including the governor, numerous celebrities, and major donors. Above them soared the massive organ pipes that defined Disney Hall's distinctive interior. Quite a step up from that hotel lobby, Keanu murmured. Same music, bigger room, Lisa replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Diane approached them, elegant in midnight blue. The governor's in the front row, she whispered, anxiety evident in her voice. His entire staff is here, plus half the State Arts Council. We've got this. Diane, Lisa assured her, exchanging a glance with Keanu. The house lights dimmed, and the audience's murmuring faded to expectant silence. Diane stepped onto the stage to welcome the guests and introduce the Foundation's Arts Education Initiative. Her voice echoed through the perfect acoustics as she outlined the program's goals and thanked major donors. And now, she concluded, it is my pleasure to introduce 2 remarkable artists who exemplify the transformative power of music. Acclaimed pianist Lisa Wong, and special guest, Keanu Reeves. The applause was thunderous as they walked on stage together. Lisa led the way to the piano, a magnificent Steinway concert grand, and they took their places side by side on the bench. For a brief moment, with the spotlight in her eyes and the weight of expectation heavy in the air, Lisa felt a flutter of panic. Then she felt Keanu shift slightly beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. A small, perhaps unconscious gesture of solidarity. She looked at him, found his eyes already on her, calm and present. No words were needed. They turned to the keyboard, took a shared breath, and began to play. The glass composition unfolded in the perfect acoustics of Disney Hall, each note resonating with crystalline clarity. Lisa felt the familiar magic building between them, that inexplicable connection that had surprised them both that first day. The audience disappeared. The governor, the critics, the expectations, all faded away until there was nothing but the music and the shared journey through it. When the final notes drifted into silence, there was a moment of complete stillness before the hall erupted in applause. Lisa and Keanu rose together, taking their bows as the audience got to their feet. As they stood side by side, accepting the ovation, Lisa glanced at Keanu. His expression held the same wonder she felt, the realization that they had created something that transcended individual ego or technical display. Something true. Later that night, at the reception following the concert, Lisa found herself surrounded by admirers and well-wishers. Critics were already calling the performance a revelation and a perfect marriage of technical brilliance and emotional authenticity. The governor had personally thanked them both, promising increased funding for the foundation's programs. Through the crowd, Lisa caught sight of Keanu speaking with Thomas Chen near the entrance. Their film was premiering next month, and Lisa had already recorded the soundtrack duets as promised. As if sensing her gaze, Keanu looked up and gave her a small smile, private, genuine, acknowledging all that had happened since that fateful afternoon. Lisa excused herself from her conversation and made her way toward them. As she approached, she overheard Thomas asking Keanu about his next project. "I'm thinking about taking some time off, actually," Keanu was saying. "There's something I want to explore further." "Let me guess," Lisa interjected with a smile. "Piano lessons?" Keanu turned to her, that same quiet intensity in his eyes that she had first mistaken for uncertainty. "Among other things, I'm finding that the most interesting journeys are the ones you don't plan." Lisa thought about the challenge she had issued 2 months ago, born of pride and ambition, yet somehow leading to growth and genuine connection. "I couldn't agree more," she said, offering her hand. "Partners?" Keanu took it, his grip warm and steady. "Partners." Around them, the reception continued, glasses clinking, cameras flashing, important people making important connections. But in that moment, Lisa understood that the truly meaningful notes were often played between the lines of the life you thought you were composing.